Okay, let's see. How do I want to introduce this? Being rinsed. Being rinsed. Being rinsed. Being rinsed. Being rinsed.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Just confused the fuck out of him.
Yeah.
Wait, why is it here? It shouldn't be here.
Being rinsed. Being rinsed.
There was some talk of a robbery, but
Nah, that wasn't a robbery. Something was definitely lost.
I thought the other guy won, and I was the only guy to pick Ozzy Diaz, but I didn't pay that much.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I picked him because I figured he had that tough. You see that weird ball of hair that he has on the front?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyone that walks around like that is like violent, probably.
Hey, they're mentally tough. That's
Yeah, he's a big dude as well. The guy was massive.
Yeah, 6'4". Ranges to Casey Leiden.
Which obviously means he's an animal.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
oh shit.
Energy. My favorite thing I want to get bucked up. Shut the fuck up, dude. Okay, let's see. How do I want to introduce this? Hey, what's going on, motherfuckers? Welcome to another edition of the Sunday Night Scuffle. This is the show where we get into a little bit of pre-show topics before the weekend roundup, just to warm up the old pipes and get ourselves well lubricated for what lies ahead. So, fellas, Danger Mouse, no special, as always, riding along with me. Super Dave in the back on the ones and twos. I'm Lazy Bed, and guys, are you ready to do this?
Let's roll.
Yeah. Okay, now a little bit of forewarning to the listener. These questions have not been made knowledge to the panel. This is going to be the first time they've heard them. So, yeah, bear with us. This is off the cuff. Anyways, on to question number one for tonight. This is going to be a bit of a maybe controversial topic, but I think it's relevant. Like I said, go as wild and crazy as you guys want on these. Cut loose, and that means feel free to ramble, Danger Mouse specifically. But gentlemen, here it is. After last night's little showdown in Las Vegas, the Russians find themselves taking home another chunk of UFC gold. And it got me to thinking, boy, there sure are a lot of international champions right now in the UFC, aren't there? But how many Americans are there? Well, not many. In fact, there really doesn't seem to be many American prospects even across the board. So I got to ask, what the fuck's going on here, guys? What happened to American MMA? Are the days of D1 wrestlers and all-American collegiate athletes behind us in the UFC? Where have all the Yankees gone? I guess we'll go to Danger Mouse first because he's not a Yankee. Danger, what do you think? What's going on with American MMA? Like, where's the American stars?
Yeah, Chael Sonnen was talking something about this. He was saying, where are all the high-level wrestlers? And I guess some of those guys are choosing not to get into MMA, either maybe going into wrestling. I don't know how profitable that game is anymore. Or maybe like a lot of other big guys, they go into some other sport. But yeah, the days of the top American wrestlers does seem to be stuttering at the moment. I'm sure it'll come back maybe in the future. What's happened? I think the fact is that it's if you look at American wrestling, it's kind of a one-trick pony almost. I'm not trying to be insulting there, but if you're going to get a handle and get enough of a counter game against wrestling, then it seems that you can largely put a stop to it. And then, of course, if you haven't got a good striking game to back it up, or even if you happen to have good wrestling, but you can take it down and you don't have any Brazilian jiu-jitsu game, then you can find yourself in trouble down there. So you're looking for guys that now that we're seeing more and more people coming into the game that are just a complete article from the day they step into the cage. They're not a wrestler who's learned has to strike and learnt a bit of BJJ. They're not a karateka that's come in and they've done the same thing. They've bolted on some wrestling and some BJJ. If you want to be good in this game, you have to come in at ground level. And I know I love to reference her, but Dakota Ditchever is kind of that the way she's been brought up through the PFL. Although again, she's actually obviously an amazing striker. That's where her game starts from. But yeah, I think for the most part in the men's game, especially, you have to have that complete game. You're going to struggle as a specialist in the modern game. I'm going to mention it in the show we're going to do later about Ray Cerullo. And yeah, I think I've kind of answered your question there.
Yeah, I think you did a pretty good job there. I sort of feel the same way, that it's a double-edged sword. On one hand, you have limited skill sets tend to not really cut the mustard anymore in modern MMA. And while these guys aren't quite as limited as the fighters of the past, you do still kind of have a tendency of, if you have a big American prospect that kind of comes on the scene, they're sort of heavily prevalent in one area, and it's not like a Khabib type of dominance in one field where you can do so much in that one area that you overcome your deficiencies elsewhere. So and then I also think on the other side of the sword, it's American athletes are going into other sports now. There's not really anything to draw them to MMA, and in particular the UFC, it being the biggest promotion out there for the sport. It's the money's not really there, the benefits aren't really there. Like, if I'm a huge, explosive, successful athlete in another sport, what am I going to do going to the UFC? Like, I can make more money elsewhere doing far less. So it's tough, but no special. You yourself are a bit of a American wrestler. Been on the mats, gotten down and dirty, maybe contracted a staph infection or two in your time. What do you think? What's going on here with fucking American MMA? I mean, we were once dominant. We fucking ruled the sport. What's happening here?
I a little column A, a little column B. I think to your point, not too dissimilar from what Mouse said is that American grapplers, primarily wrestlers, are finding other avenues. I mean, ADCC and the Craig Jones stuff. They're legitimately finding other avenues where they don't have to worry about striking. Also, there has been a resurgence in American wrestling specifically, where they're sticking to wrestling in international competition, especially in the women's side. It's there's been a resurgence in it, I think, that wasn't there previously. Like, because we used to have Kane's, Tito's, Chuck started as a wrestler and then became a striker. I mean, it's always going to be there. There's always going to be. I mean, look at Bo Nickel. Bo Nickel came over from being a D1 and failed Olympian to try to be, you know, the top American wrestler. But he's now inside the UFC and he's still really good at it. But there's also still struggles with his game. You can tell. I mean, he's not in his early 20s. He's in his late 20s now. I think it's a mixture of, like you said, we have opportunities that weren't there previously and new ways for athletes who are D1 level to make money outside of combat sports, specifically. And that's good for the sport. That's good for the sport of wrestling. But as far as just like champions, American champions, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, there was a fighter, I think it was Donald Cerrone, or maybe someone along his line of fighter, where you have other countries that this is what they do. Look at Dagestan, right? Technically Russia, but Dagestan. That's all. Like, there's very few of them that do anything else. Combat sambo, wrestling, Greco, judo. France has that now, right? A lot of their guys have judo backgrounds or kickboxing backgrounds. Brazil has always been a powerhouse, right? They're starting to get more athletes. I mean, look at the investment into like China and Southeast Asia. Japan has always been a great resource for wrestlers, judo practitioners, karate athletes, and strikers. And they've been hit and miss sometimes, but they've tried. America is where all the other athletes go to other sports. They don't go to combat sports unless they've been born and bred in it and stayed in it for years. And to come back from making millions to making maybe 10,000 and 10,000 on your first venture into MMA. Yeah. Hey, unless you're like Luke Thomas once said, unless you're like desperate or you're doing it as a hobby, you're not going to just take the paycheck because you want the paycheck. You're taking it for other reasons. And it's unfortunate, but we don't put dedication into like the ability to make money on the amateur level or on the low end of the sport. It'd be probably different if we did. And we probably would get better athletes that would do it on a regular basis. But we're not there, and we might not be there for a while. But, MMA comes in waves. Everything comes in waves in the sport. Things change. I wouldn't be surprised if 2 years from now we're looking at 5 American champions. But again, we're not there yet. So I don't know. It's part of the sport. That's all.
Yeah, that's a good point too. It is kind of a thing that comes in waves. You do sort of have countries that get hot the same way that gyms get hot, and they sort of take over for a period of time. And but then again, on the other hand, like we've kind of been in the era of Brazilian and Russian or Dagestani MMA for quite some time now, and it sort of seems like these guys have kind of I don't know, maybe unlocked some loopholes in the game that American fighters have let slide under the radar, or it's just something missing from the American game. I think that they're kind of not capitalizing in this modern era of MMA, and I do hope that we could turn it around in the future because obviously American champions mean better numbers for the UFC, and better numbers for the UFC mean a better product overall for us, I guess. So I don't know. We'll see how it pans out.
You've also got the fact the game has expanded into the world. It's been taken up in more countries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Austin brought up some really good points about how in many other countries it is the sole game, it is the sole sport that most of these people are competing in and honing their skills in from a very young age, whereas in America you got these kids playing in all types of different sports and partaking in all types of extracurricular activities, so the focus is a bit more spread out. Yeah, we'll see how things go in the next couple of years. All right, boys, let's move it along to question number 2, though. It's going to lead us into a little bit of real talk, like men do. This is going to be a difficult one for me to bring up, actually, because it does certainly pertain to a few of my favorite fighters. With Magomed Ankalaev's win last night in the main event of 313, the UFC now finds itself with 3 concurrent champions who are, well, let's face it, not the most fan-friendly in their fighting styles. Bilal Merab and now Ankalaev. And while I think that each of these 3 clearly deserve and have earned their places, they're not doing the UFC any favors in regards to selling pay-per-views or really bringing in any new fans, at least not with their fights themselves. So you factor this into the equation with the recent rash of fight-ending or at least fight-altering fouls, and we've got ourselves into a bit of a predicament where the product being put out isn't always entertaining. I'm rambling on a bit, but I guess my question to you guys is this. Has the UFC scoring system and rule set been gamed? And have guys found a way to not necessarily fight to finish all the time, but maybe to just fight to win, and sometimes at any cost? What do you guys think? Let's go to you first, Austin.
Well, Warren, I hear that. I've heard that term too, gamify. And I've heard it from people who are analysts that kind of look at the Eastern Bloc as they're like were discussing earlier about other countries primarily having limited resources for their athletic programs, or not having a whole lot of opportunities inside those countries for athletics. This is when you talk about gamified, it's because you don't like the way they do shit. And if we're being honest, I don't care if it's gamified. I don't care if it's considered less entertaining. This is combat sports. You do what you need to do within the confines of the rule set to win. Because guess what? Your pay is on the line. Yeah, Bell is on the line, as we found with the main event. And with the past two, it's misuse of the rule sets with fouls. We could call whatever we want to with the UFC saying they had a star in Poatan lose, and that's bad for the sport. The sport has been forced around 3 letters. UFC. And then by proxy, Dana White for some reason. It's like Vince McMahon in WWE. The stars were there, the promotion is there, and the handler of said promotion is there, right? The difference being here is this is combat sports. It's not a written script. You have people who are capable of winning. When you match them up, sometimes the guy you don't want as a promotional tool to win ends up winning. The UFC has only themselves to blame because half the time they don't promote these fucking guys. If they were to actually put in effort like they did with some of the countdowns and some of the promotional material that they did, they can do it. They just choose not to. And more often than not, they would rather have somebody like Poatan be their poster guy because he doesn't speak a lot. And when he fights to finish his opponents. And he's done that multiple times. But you also have to prepare for the opposite. For a guy who's probably not the favorite fighter in the UFC, he's not the most glamorous fighter. Matter of fact, sometimes his fights can be boring, like in Ankalaev. And as you said, Bilal Muhammad, not the most favorite of the welterweight division. And Murat had a tough-ass hill to climb on his way to the title. And then when he still won, people still didn't like him. We're in a interesting time frame of we don't like fighters gamifying things, but we also don't like our entertainment getting taken away. I mean, guess what? This is the sport, and this is a sport. You have to be okay with people that you don't like winning.
Yeah.
Despite it being an entertainment sport, you have to be okay with it. The outcome is the outcome. Unless somebody gets screwed over, we could talk about one of the fights in the card. That's different. But this is a sport. It's not always going to end the way you want it. We've seen blownouts in other sports before, and you get all pissed off and like, God damn it, I thought my team was going to win. No, they look like shit. You don't have to like the outcome. There's always other fights. There's always other fighters you can follow. There's rematches. There's change in weight classes. It shouldn't matter because the UFC has insulated itself as the 3 letters that people follow, and they continue to watch on that regardless. The stars help. That's not what I'm trying to say. You can't have stars in the sport. The stars change, and the UFC choosing only a handful of fighters to promote doesn't help the matter. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. See, like on one hand, I agree with what you're saying because, like I said, I support guys like Marab and guys like Bilal, and I champion their success. But that is primarily because I like them personally, on a personal level. Is it extremely entertaining? No. Now, and this is partly why I brought up the scoring system, because if you got Dana sitting there and he's unhappy when guys like this win, he doesn't enjoy it. He doesn't find it entertaining. You have a large portion of the fan base that doesn't enjoy it, is unhappy with it, and doesn't find it entertaining. And Dana regularly tells us he sells these holy shit moments. If you're the powers that be, you are the ones with the sway. You have the stroke. If you're finding this product that you're putting out to not be as entertaining as you once did, or to bring the fire and excitement that it once did. Is that not a product of your rule set and your scoring system not being, tilted the way you like it to be? Like, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with what these guys are doing. They're doing what they're supposed to do. They're game planning, and they're going out there and they're winning fights and they're dominating their opponents. And I'm just saying, if he's going to shit on these guys and be unhappy with them and make them fight through 9-10 fights to get to the belt and then schedule them harshly going forward once they do win, if you're going to do all that, why don't you just fucking alter the rule set, or at the very least the scoring system, to where these guys aren't going to benefit from fighting like this? Like, it just seems like a peculiar situation for him to put himself in.
It's not up to the UFC though, is it? It's the commissions who set the scoring criteria.
Yeah, true. But
yeah, that was. I was gonna say, yeah, because they had adjusted the rule set to minimize grappling. That was the thing they did, and these guys are still winning despite that. That's a thing that too.
Yeah. It's a strange situation to find themselves in, where they're constantly bashing on guys that fight like this, but the guys that fight like this are finding the most success within their rule system, not their rule system, but within the unified rule set of the sport. So, Danger Russ, let's pass it to you. Let's get you in here. Let's hear your voice, your wonderful English tones. What do you think about this? Are we in need of an overhaul of the scoring system, of the rules, with all the fouls occurring that are altering fights and fishy scorecards? What do you think?
Yeah, I'd love to see an overhaul of the scoring system. Maybe start introducing half points. That would be a good point way to start, because then you could also introduce half points for fouls as well. That's your second. Your second warning. That's half a point. It's not quite as not quite as serious as a full point if you can score, if the judges can score half points as well. So I guess that could work. As far as fighters playing the rules, gamerism. I'm quite a Sean Strickland fan, and let's face it, that's what Sean Strickland did. He hid behind his jab and his teep, and he plodded his way to victories. And you could either hate him or like him for it. And I always quite enjoyed that thing. And don't get me wrong, they're not the most exciting fights, but the fact that he could do that to some of the best strikers in the world was just, that was good. It was interesting to watch in that respect. I can't remember the name of the fight. I think it was it Jamal Hill, Derek Lewis, where we just laid on him for the entire 15-25 minutes. Is that the fight? Am I thinking of the right fight?
Jailton Almeida Lewis, maybe? Or did they fight?
Yeah.
I think.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I have managed to pull the right one out of my memory. Yeah, that one, which everyone hated on, and I know at the time I quite enjoyed it. I'm not going to go back and watch it because I'd suspect it'd be very boring watching it now, but at the time it was entertaining. So yeah, I can understand fighters gaming the system. I can understand the UFC trying to game the fighters, or because obviously they have much more influence. Yeah, it's so much of what Austin said. Really, it is the fight game as set up underneath the UFC. If you want to go outside the UFC and try other waters, you can do, but the likelihood is you're not going to make as much money in the long term unless you're a superstar. Francis Ngannou, again, must mention Dakota Ditchever. She's racked up. I know there's other people who the UFC have turned away that also won big money with the PFL, $1 million over the year. I suppose it works out. It's not a bad payday under pretty much anyone's standards, unless you're Elon Musk, of course. Then it's been a bad year. Yeah, I don't think I can add anything more.
No, that's fair. I mean, I think that ultimately the burden of whatever problem this may be falls on the UFC more than anything, because it to me, I think this sounds like a ratings issue. It sounds similar to kind of like what the NBA is going through right now, where they're talking about waning ratings and falling fan attendance and different things of this nature. And while that's not happening with the UFC yet, if they really are presenting a product that the brass, feel falls short of their standards as far as knockdown, drag them out entertainment. I think that ultimately, what's the worst that's going to come of this? Maybe less people will watch or less people will attend, and that's something that they'll have to figure out a way to address and figure out a way to fix. Should it, it come to that, and if need be. But in the
Well,
meantime,
the
go ahead.
UFC is obviously making its money from the TV deals that it's got now.
Yep.
Just as its big promotions being the numbered cards like the UFC 313. And
Mhm.
Dana has kind of already solved the method of making those profitable because he just jacks the ticket prices up every single time.
Yeah, yeah. So like ultimately, in the meantime, if you're a fan that is complaining about the fighting style of certain fighters or the product that we're being presented, maybe just don't watch. You don't have to watch. It's the same thing as complaining about the rule set or the scoring system in any other sport. Fighters or athletes in any sport are going to play the game the most intelligently that they can, and they're going to play to win. And that's exactly what guys are doing. So if you got a problem with it, kick rocks or just fucking deal with it.
Yep.
All right. Well, that will put us on to the final stanza for tonight's Scuffle Symphony. And it's going to be a bit of a play off of the last question. It's another one that I also don't like to pose. Gang, on Sunday night, there was no chama. There was no left hook from hell. No meme poses afterwards. No celebrations for the 55 fantasy points I thought I had coming. Son of a bitch. No, instead, our guy, our guy Poatan, he looked flat, he looked hesitant, and at times he had me completely scratching my head. Now, there's a lot of ways that we can take this, and I'm sure that we'll get into it on the weekend roundup. But the question that I'll ask you guys is this: was that performance that we saw Saturday night from Alex Pereira the product of his inevitable decline, or was there something else at play here? Now, I'll let you guys speculate what that something else might have been, if anything, should you wish. But are we witnessing the beginning of the fall of Poatan? I think it's you first, Austin. So what do you think?
I hate talking about the downfalls of someone's career, even though sometimes it's obvious. And there's also career resurgences. To me, I think he just got caught up in what was his most difficult, possibly, fight to date. The one time I looked at him and he looked gassed in his entire UFC run, the one time where he was constantly moving backwards, not because he was afraid of Ankalaev, but because Ankalaev figured out honestly that they had not prepared properly for him, and it showed. It showed. Like, I think that's the thing, is that I don't think it's so much that Potan is in decline as much as it was a great game plan from Ankalaev, which he's a dog. He's, This is the same dude who DQ'd himself out of beating Johnny Walker once and then immediately killed him in the rematch, right? This is the same dude who took a draw after getting his leg chopped up in the first two rounds against Jan Blachowicz, right? He's a dog. He, he just put it all together tonight. And I think that was the thing. It's like, we'll discuss it in deeper detail. I don't believe Potan is on the decline as of yet, but this, depending, I would say the next fight tells us. The rematch will tell us if he's actually in the decline, because he got
Mm,
hurt and wobbled in multiple fights throughout his run. He's been finished in his run before. Uh, would it be out of the question? He is 37. I want to put it out there as it wasn't, but to me, his next fight will tell us that. It could also just be the fact that this was what matchmaking could have done to him prior to this.
hmm Yeah, that's fair. And that is telling you in your response there, because if I'm not mistaken, I think I heard you say in the rematch. So I think that means that you think that he's getting a immediate rematch, which is interesting. But Our producer Dave said to keep these answers short, so we're going to move this along. Danger Mouse, what do you think? Do you think that we are witnessing the inevitable decline of one Poatan, Alex Pereira, or was this just an off night?
Yeah, well, the march of time is inevitable. That will happen sooner or later to him. I think we have to look at this. Had Alex won, this would have been his fourth championship defense within the calendar year, which was just crazy. I mean, just to have those 4 fights is pretty mad. That's kind of looking at Izzy levels of, continuing to fight onwards and onwards. So that he was going to hit a bump in the road, yeah, I suppose that's equally inevitable. Happened to Izzy, but as Austin said and you've said, presuming he is getting a rematch because on 4 title, is it 4 times he defended it, or was this his 4th defense? Yeah, this was his 4th defense, wasn't it? He should get a rematch.
Yes.
I think. Yeah, he should get a rematch. He had been bouncing around. He was over in Australia with Sean Strickland. A few people have been saying he didn't look like he was taking it quite as seriously as he should have done. So maybe that's it. Maybe he just needs a break. 6 months off, come back, 38th birthday present, take his crown back from Ankalaev, and I'll cut it there for Dave. For Dave.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically my thought process on this whole thing, too, is I think he's deserving of a rematch. Should he take it is a whole nother story. I kind of lean towards maybe a move up to heavyweight. I think that might be the smartest move to make right now. I don't think that you're going to get a better opportunity than this going forward if you're Alex. So if I'm him, I'm moving up. Should he stay, I do think that he deserves a rematch if that's what he wants. But as far as the performance, you ask me, I'm biased in this situation and in this scenario, but I'm going to say it was a flat performance. I think he looked off from the time he got in there, but that's something we'll save for later because we're obviously going to get into that on the upcoming weekend roundup, which will actually be...
I definitely have something more to say on that, but we will save it for that show.
Yeah, I said upcoming, but I think that this will come out after the roundup. So whatever,
Yes.
the fucking timelines are screwed up. We're in a different multiverse here, folks.
Can confirm that is not fake news. This will come out after the weekend roundup.
Woo-doo, Twilight Zone. What the fuck? Okay, guys, but that's going to just about do it for this here edition of the Sunday Night Scuffle. I hope that everybody enjoyed themselves. As always, don't judge us on this. This is just some fuck around content that we put out there as extra stuff for you guys. So hopefully you enjoyed it. If you're new around here, please subscribe to the channel. If you're not, like the video and leave us a comment below. We love you guys. Peace out, bleeders.
Peace out.
Later.
Drinky time. Oh, we really didn't need that.
Who do you think you are, D. Piercy? I'm gonna kill this guy on this ATV.
Say what?
The guy on a 4-wheeler that's just been driving up and down my fucking street for like the last 45 minutes. What are you doing, dude?
Under the free, can't you just shoot him or something?
With our current administration, you might just be able to get away with it.
No politics.
Well, he's a fucking idiot because one, they're not street legal, and two, like a couple hundred yards down the fucking street, there's a giant swath of woods that he could just go cruising around in if he wanted to, with trails, with a fucking creek. Like,
when you said ATV, are you on about a quad bike?
Yeah, 4-wheeler. Yeah.
Oh, they're not legal on your roads?
No.
No? Oh, wow. Weird. Again, land of the free strikes again. You can zoom up and down them all you like on here. As long as you've got tax on them. That's it.
Yeah. Fucking jackasses.
All right, sounds like Danger's back.
Yeah, I am.
I'm ready whenever you guys are.
So well, let me pour a top up on my drink and then we'll be ready to go.
What are you drinking?
I have a bottle of beer I'm just finished off, and then I have some of my new improved orange hooch. So made with
Nice.
wine yeast.
Orange orange
Don't go
flavored
blind.
hooch.
It's literally orange juice, sugar, and wine yeast. High ABV wine yeast is supposed to be. So it should be around your drinking favor, Austin. Should be around 12%.
Oh,
Yeah.
But it's good. Hey, Austin.
yes, Dave.
Fuck you.
Fuck you. I knew you were gonna fucking say it.
We haven't had one of those for a while.
Yeah, I know. Austin saw it coming.
Every
though.
time
he always thinks I'm gonna say
Every
it,
time he
and I never
does it,
say
he does it with the same fucking tone too. He's like, "Hey, Austin." What, Dave? Fuck you. Fuck you, Dave.
It's like the ending of the Waltons. Dave's up in one room and Austin's down in the other room, and he's, "Hey, Austin." "Yeah, Dave." "Fuck you, Austin." "Thanks, Dave."
Have you ever seen the Waltons?
Yeah,
I've
I've
seen
the one.
a handful.
You
Oh
simply
man, the
can't
mom
forget.
on that show, she's fucking like a celebrity crush.
Really?
Yeah,
I'll have to go back
Mrs.
and look.
Walton?
yeah. She's got a black belt.
Wow.
Body karate.
Yeah.
The original karate hottie, yeah. Mrs. Walton. Night, John
And
boy.
ready to go.
Yeah, count me in, Dave.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Oh, fuck. I had a one-liner that I was going to say when we opened up, and I can't remember it.